And we're recording. And I'll close this window. Okay, to get started, code of conduct item of the week is to drive safely, defensively, and courteously. And you'll see that our safety focus of this coming week is seat belts. So that's very much related to driving safely. And let's get down there. Let's see. Okay, for corporate announcements, we have a new project manager. Bill McSweeney has been promoted to project manager, so congratulations to Bill. I believe he's going to be in charge of the CCTA and maybe some other jobs. And Friday the 3rd, which is next Friday, is an ECI as well as a federal and state holiday in recognition of Independence Day on the 4th. Since the 4th turns out to be on a Saturday this year, the holiday is recognized on the day before. And don't forget, the end of next week, get your time cards in on Thursday night, if that works out, or first thing Monday morning. So payroll is going to have a short week to do their processing for the holiday week, a 4-day week. So by Thursday afternoon, they'll have to have everything done. So anything that delays them is putting them in a bad situation, a hectic pace. So yard parking, just the same old notes, some yard parking issues, and were we still doing some changes here, Scott? Burns? He ain't here.
Should be on his phone.
Yeah, it must be. He's talking about moving some things around. I haven't seen anything yet. Status changes, check with the accounting department. We're still seeking some different positions. I don't know if all of these are open. I know the on-the-job training still is not, there hasn't been any serious applications. I think we got one resume. And ECI turned 50, and don't forget to secure your job sites, especially the holiday week next weekend. And technical tips, we're changing gears here, away from EPSC measures. We went through all those, 13 items, so that carried us for quite a while. And now I thought we'd do some transportation engineering things. And many of our projects involve some form of transportation engineering, such as designing and implementing traffic control plans, a thing that we actually do from the design process to actually implementing it. And construction of roadways, building bike and recreation paths, constructing rail highway grade crossings, constructing rail or highway signal systems, and lining and tamping of track and rail. And the following weeks, we're going to look at this highway, roadway, railway geometric design. And we're going to start with sight and stopping distances. And before I start, I'll just say that it's like before highways were critical for curves and for all kinds of geometric design, railroads were the ones. Railroads are critical. You can't just lay out a set of tracks, obviously. You have to design it to the right geometry. Back in the old days with a horse and buggy, didn't really matter much about all the geometric design we're talking about, like sight distances today. Sight distances really didn't matter in the old days when it was just a horse and buggy. So sight distance is the length of highway ahead that is visible to the driver, and obviously one of the most fundamental safety considerations in highway design. And the sight distance is typically affected by both a vertical curve and a horizontal curve of the roadway and obstructions along the side or above. Like if you go coming along a highway and drop below a bridge, you have a limited sight distance because of that. And the minimum sight distances for the safe traffic flow are considered for the a turnout area, passing lanes, and general highway geometry. And it's a combination of three things, just pretty obvious when you think about it. Is just, I'll have to get that image up. The distance traveled for the perception time. So something jumps in front of you, a car pulls out in front of you, you have those few moments to get your head around it and say, oh my God, there's something in the roadway, I got to stop. Usually you're given a second and a half for design purposes. Obviously it's on the high side. And then an actual time for hitting the brake and getting that reaction time. So there's a couple things combined, which are the human part, and then the braking part is the mechanical part for the vehicle stopping. The braking distance is the velocity or speed squared divided by 30 times F plus G. F is the coefficient of friction between the rubber and the road, and G is the grade of the road. So if you go upgrade, obviously it helps. If you go downgrade, it makes it worse. Let me go back up to the top and get my. Well, perception might obviously change. I mean, your reaction time and seeing things, but I probably not too much. One of the big effects is like wet surfaces on the roadway can have a big effect on friction. Let's see here. See, the images weren't showing up. I'll try this. Security system be different. Dangerous to Outlook and stuff, but this is Matt's computer. I don't care.
Brandon, you're gonna need you after this.
Yeah.
It all boils down to your computer, sir.
Yeah, probably right. Okay, let's see if this helps. There we go. There's my image, and obviously, kind of limited sight distance on a curve like this. Does anyone recognize that curve? Riverside Avenue. Yep. Yeah, like E&E is right off to the right, and then it comes out at the Winooski River Bridge. It's kind of, I think the image was taken back a ways, and I zoomed in on it, so it's kind of exaggerated. Yeah, it's that corner there. That corner, actually, right around the corner is where I parked to go fishing in the salmon hole, and the path is right there. Oh, darn it. Gave it away. So anyway, I gave an example, 50 miles an hour. Typically, a friction is around 0.3 for a dry surface, and a downgrade of 4% or 0.04. You take all those numbers into account, it takes 320 feet to brake, in that case, going 50 miles an hour. And plus, you add some time, 2.5 seconds of travel time at 50 miles an hour before you even start the braking. That's 183 feet, so all combined, that's 503 feet. So if you were designing a road and you had, say, a blind spot or something, you would try to keep it back. And actually we got called on it, and it wasn't a problem. But one of the traffic control plans we submitted for New Haven for this rail project coming up to turn off from the roadway and onto the site, they questioned the sight distance. And, the process is to go through this, see what the actual measured distance is, and figure out whether the speeds are going to cause a problem. And usually in a construction zone, you can also reduce the speed limit.
Does that change any by having a heavier vehicle, like a car versus a tractor trailer?
It kind of would, but it's mostly a friction thing. So if you can get the actual brakes to lock up, say you're at that point. But obviously a heavy truck would go further. But also the thing is, with a heavy truck, he's sitting up higher, so his sight distance is usually greater. So it kind of makes up for that difference. So for project profile, we're going to talk about the CCTA, Downtown Transit Center, it's called. And we're contracted with PC Construction. They're the general contractor for the site concrete on the new Chittenden County Transportation Authority, the CCTA Downtown Transit Center. And as a lot of you know, this facility has been years in the planning. I don't know how long we've been hearing about this project going on. There's been numerous sites that they've looked at, and they finally selected a site on St. Paul. It's between Pearl Street to the north and Cherry Street to the south. So 1 block length next to the big church there at right there in that square with the big bell tower. And it will occupy that whole street, within the street. When I first heard about the job, I'm looking, I happened to be down there, I'm like, I don't see how they could do it. They got buildings on the east side and that park and the church on the west. And then I look at the drawings, and I'm like, wow, they're taking the street. They really are going to occupy that street. And one of the first stages is to relocate all the facilities they have on that section now, which are CCTA bus canopies, and they'll have to get relocated so we can occupy the street. So that's one of the first steps that we're working on. This is from about Cherry Street looking north. So there's the federal building on Pearl Street, and the big church, the steeples or the bell towers right here. You can't really see it. And see, right now there's all these canopies set up for the bus stop. and that's where the buses are staged and where people get onto the bus. But now all that's getting relocated while we do our work. And I'm going to click on this. It'll give you a sense. This is from the CCTA website. It shows the idea, an image of what it'll look like at the end. So there's a big bell tower, federal building we just saw in the picture, and this is Cherry Street looking back to the north. It'll basically occupy the center of the street. And it's going to be a little odd. The traffic pattern now is the southbound traffic is going to be on the right side looking at it. So it's flipped around traffic. It'll be a little odd.
How long is that job?
2016.
2016 before it's open.
We'll still be working right now in 2016.
Yep, but it'll be kind of a different phase. Right now, once they get relocated, they'll start the earthwork and start just ripping and tearing and digging down and then concrete up. And because there's a basement level in this thing too. Yeah, all that stuff. So today we're going to talk about let me get back actually to the blog.
Might be the middle one. Yeah. That one.
This? Okay, here we go. Matt's going to talk about seat belts. And one of the things that I discussed in the blog is that there's one aspect of seatbelt use that I think isn't really often thought about, but I think it's important, and that they'll obviously help the operator, protect the operator if there's an accident, a rollover, or an impact or whatever. But another important part is that the operator is restrained in a seat, so that if there's especially on off-road site condition where things are rough, if you're restrained, you have a lot better control. So it's actually not only safer for the operator, it's safer for the guys on the ground. Let's see, where's Nick Pelosi? Do you have a special Jeep seat? You don't, but you'd like one, wouldn't you? Jeep has people spend a lot of money on these seats, don't they? And they have the special, the 4-point harnesses and everything, and all the setup on some of them. Yeah, so because you're off-road, it can get pretty rough. It's the same idea. I mean, being restrained in a vehicle or piece of equipment is a benefit to how well you can control that vehicle. It's kind of a secondary, benefit to the seat belts, but it also improves the safety of the guys on the ground.
That's an excellent point, Ken. And that's why we have them. It's for safety, for your own safety, for everybody else's safety. We want to just talk about this because we've been having issues throughout the company with seatbelt use, especially a lot in heavy equipment. So let's put it on the forefront. Let's really start wearing our seatbelts because they're meant to protect ourselves. Not only that's a state law, driving a commercial vehicle or on the roadway, but our standard for our company is that all equipment provided with a seatbelt must be worn. This is literature right out of our safety manual. So it's our policy to always wear your seatbelt. So that's why Stu and we always look for that stuff. And we really do it for your own benefit, because if you never know when something might happen, you might roll over, and it's meant to keep you in that rollover cage. If you don't have that seatbelt, if something happens, you could get crushed between the ground and that rollover cage. So it's important. So vehicles, it's a state and federal law to have your seatbelt all the time. In the state of Vermont, on the roadways when we're driving, it's a secondary law. For everyone that's non-CDL, they cannot pull you over for not having a seatbelt. But when they do, they're going to hit you with a fine. For their CDL guys, it is a first offense violation. So if they see you without a seatbelt, they'll pull you over and they'll write you a hefty ticket. And sometimes even points on your license. So again, it's a good reminder for everybody out there in the roadway. We see it very often, sometimes just driving around here, and it makes me think, wait, if they're not wearing their seatbelt around here, what are they doing out on the main roads? I know it's sometimes you're just going from here to the backyard, but still, it's that habit that we'd like you to get into, is just always wearing your seatbelt 24/7. So with heavy equipment, if a piece of equipment does not have a rollover protection, a seatbelt is not required. So I know that gets kind of confusing because we have some rollers out there that do not have a seatbelt. And the reason for it is something happens, you can actually bail out, and that rollover protection is not there, so you can actually bail out. There's not a lot of pieces of equipment that have it. So if a rollover protection is available in pretty much all of our equipment, other than maybe just those old rollers, then you got to have a seatbelt on. And again, the reason for it, same thing with all the forklifts and everything. Those are some of the most dangerous equipment that we have are these little Toyota forklifts. They tip over very easily, and if you're not wearing your seatbelt, there's a chance that you exit your seat and then rollover protection, that is going to crush you. So that's why it's important to wear those seatbelts. Again, it's a very kind of basic safety training on it. But again, this is the stuff that saves your life when you don't expect something to happen. You know, you might have a bad day, you might not be thinking what you're doing, and so you know it, you're out of your limits of your piece of equipment that you're operating, and I tell you, the seatbelt's going to save your life. So think about it. You see someone else not wearing it, hey, just say, hey, you know better, throw that seatbelt on. We can all look out for each other. You know, we can go home and safe each and every day. So. We won't see you next Friday because I believe we are off.
We are off
So,
next Friday.
so the next safety meeting will be in 2 weeks. So let's have a continued safe season. And thanks everybody for coming. And let's have a safe day.
Matt, there must be a stipulation on some of these seatbelt laws. Like in a flat yard, in a substation. You have to literally get out of the seat in the dozer, back between gears or back over one to see properly.
Well, I mean, as like OSHA and all that,
I can understand
they
that.
don't really have a seatbelt law saying that you have to wear a seatbelt.
I mean, there have to be some stipulations where sometimes better not to wear one or it's something.
Well, that's why we would like you to wear it. We like
Right.
when it's feasible, have it all the time. If there's those situations where you need spotters and stuff like that, let's get them and use spotters. You know, so you can see and they can guide you around those tight corners.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Hand
off something. Where's Ben?
This, yeah.